As Kim mentioned, this panel is about federal resources for individuals on the ground and how you can access them at the local level. So for this panel, I would like to call up our esteemed guests. The U.S. Department of Education Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights is being represented by Angela Hights, Chief Regional Attorney for OCR Dallas. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is being represented by Rayford Irvin, Houston District Director. And the U.S. Housing and Urban Development is being represented by Dr. Glenda Shepard, HUD Fair Housing Representative. Thank you all so much for joining us, and please give them a warm welcome. I'd like to begin this morning by asking for each of you to just spend maybe 2 minutes telling us a little bit about yourselves and the mission of your respective agencies.
I don't know.
That's right.
Hi, I'm Angela Hights. I'm the Chief Attorney with the Dallas Office for Civil Rights as part of the U.S. Department of Education. I've been with OCR for a long time. I'm dating myself, but our mission is to ensure equal access to education and to promote educational excellence through the vigorous enforcement of civil rights in our nation's schools. And we do that through a variety of ways, which includes complaint investigations. We also do agency-initiated proactive compliance reviews, and we also provide technical assistance through forums such as this to members of the public and also to our recipient institutions in the educational community.
Good morning. It's kind of ironic I'm here for a hate group. I'm a native Texan. I'm from Glenda, Texas. For those who know, Northeast Texas, Piney Wood areas. I've left Texas when I was 19 years of age and vowed never to come back for the things that I've seen in East Texas. And the irony is I'm back doing civil rights law. I'm retired criminal investigator from the Air Force OSI. I've been with the EEOC for 12 years. I started out in the Phoenix District Office where I covered Wyoming, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and one other, Colorado. And then here I transferred here to the Houston office 4 years ago. Again, it says two things you never say, never say you never do anything ever. And it says, I'm back in Texas, and now I'm doing civil rights law. I vowed never do civil rights law either. And so here I am doing civil rights law and living in Texas. I've enjoyed to stay back here in Houston, Texas. I've been with the EEOC, like I said, 12 years. My jurisdiction is Southeast Texas, 27 counties in Southeast Texas, and the entire state of Louisiana. Here I have investigators, mediators, federal judges, and my jurisdiction is the private sector, the federal sector, and also we had tribal lands as well. For those who don't know, EEOC's mission comes in the hate crimes in the employment arena. Our mission is to prevent and remedy unlawful employment discrimination in the workplace. So any cases under Title VII, age, ADA, ADAAA for disability, genetic information, any of the issues in Title VII again. So my agency is the agency responsible for all those things. So if you have constituents in the community, let me know and tell them to follow with us.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dr. Glenda Shepard. I'm with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I've been with the federal government for a long time. I served in the military, active duty as a criminal investigator, and then I graduated graduate school and was awarded a Presidential Management Fellowship. There, I became the team lead equal opportunity specialist for the Houston field office. HUD's mission is to ensure Americans have access to fair, affordable housing and opportunities to achieve self-sufficiency, thereby strengthening our communities and nations. Specifically under Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, we're responsible for enforcing the Fair Housing Act. So a person who feels that they've been discriminated against based on one of 7 protected classes, it has to be one of the 7 protected classes, which is race, color, ethnicity, sex, disability, and familial status, meaning families with children or a pregnant woman. They can file a complaint with us in Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. Our complaint process goes through our Fort Worth regional office. If we accept the complaint, it'll be assigned to an investigator. So that's kind of what we do.
Thank you so much for sharing those pieces. What's really interesting to me about the work that you all do is that while we've moved so far ahead in this country in providing access to opportunities and services to a variety of individuals, there are some individuals and classes of folks who still face challenges in accessing resources like housing or even applying for jobs and things like that. I'm wondering if each of you can please offer a few remarks on what resources you have available for individuals to access, if there are any costs associated with those services, and if they're catering everybody, or is it specific to certain individuals or certain classes of individuals?
Okay, again, I'm with the Office for Civil Rights, and we ensure equal access to education in our nation's schools. So in order to access our services, they are free. Anyone can file a complaint if they believe they've experienced discrimination. Or you can file on behalf of another individual. Although in order for us to proceed with an individual claim, we would need consent of that person that you're filing on behalf of. But our services are free. Anyone can access them. The regulations that we enforce ensure that persons are protected from discrimination on the basis of race, age, national origin, sex, and disability. So, assuming you have a claim that falls into one of those categories, you can access our office or file a complaint of discrimination if you're experiencing discrimination at a public school or university. Specific to the issue of this forum, some of the complaints that we handle include claims of harassment on the basis of any of those protected categories that I described. We certainly see a fair share of complaints dealing with sexual harassment, racial harassment, sexual violence, disability harassment, and those types of bias incidents. So we also, for members of the community, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of providing technical assistance, you can contact our office if you're not sure as to whether or not what you are experiencing or what someone else is experiencing may constitute discrimination on the basis of a protected class. You can contact our office and speak to any of our investigators or attorneys who are there to provide assistance in explaining the process of filing a complaint with our office. And our services are readily available. You can file a complaint either by sending us a letter, you can fax it, you can email it, and you can access our online complaint form that allows you and sort of walks you through the steps and the information that we would need in order to proceed with an investigation of your complaint.
And likewise for EEOC, our services are also free, and they fall into the employment realm. Under Title VII of sex, religion, color, national origin, disability, age, 40 plus. I'm gonna make that one day. The age category, I'm not quite there yet myself. But so everything we do here, it is free. We have, anyone can walk into our office. We have walk-in services. We also now have an online portal that we encourage everyone to follow via our online portal. Via that online portal, it kind of does a quick assessment to see if we're the right office for you, but it's also to schedule an appointment with us. I recommend getting an appointment with the EEOC because one thing in this district, I'm not short on charges. And so I have a full agenda. All my investigators are gainfully employed. But again, as I mentioned, we also, when you do file in our office, we also, I mentioned the mediators. So you offer mediation. If you get the opportunity to take mediation, I encourage you to take the mediation, where we get a chance to bring both parties in, the company and the complaint into the office to have. It's free. Come in, it doesn't cost anything, and you have discussion. If it doesn't settle, we'll bring it back to our investigation side of the house. If it does settle, I've seen them settle for a handshake. I've also seen some settle for a large amount of money as well too. And so the issue is getting both parties together so that you can mend that relationship together. On the federal side, in the federal sector, I have the administrative judges also under my discretion too. They handle all federal complaints. Once it's gone through the internal agency's process, it'll be referred to the EEOC for hearing. Our online portal is very good. I think we're backlog. I think Travis. First, before I go, my new deputy director is Travis Nicholson here. He's just been in the state of Texas now for 4 months now. So as we try to take all the charges in, our job is to kind of speed up our process. It's not the fastest process in the world. It takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to resolve our cases. He and I, one of our goals is kind of to shorten that process and make it more efficient and effective. We also are big, as Cam mentioned, Joe Boniuk was my outreach and education coordinator. I'm also a big advocate of the education piece where we try to teach employers and also the community how to stay out of my office. So in the reality is one thing I do love about the EOC job versus when I was in the criminal side of the house. I'm a retired criminal guy from DOD, is that I have subpoena authority. And I have subpoena authority is a lot to say that people are not cooperating with us. I don't like to use it, but I have a subpoena in my pocket right now if I have to go pull it out. But just in case. So I call it pocket subpoena. The reality is I want to bring parties together, talk about it, discuss what can we resolve those issues. A lot of times it's a miscommunication, so we can get the parties in and have a discussion. We'll do that piece. In the outreach world that we go into, we go out to any community, any affiliated group, any associations. We have free services. Travis and I have at our discretion to offer 1 hour free, depending on who the agency is and what we're going to discuss. But we also charge now. The agency shifted direction about 3 years ago, 2015, 2016, on the harassment in the workplace. We had a task force on harassment. And so we shifted our training from going to, we figured out that our harassment training we did, harassment prevention, was teaching people how to harass. So we shifted harassment, and now we do respect in the workplace. We have 2 different modules that we charge for that. We have a module for employees and a module for managers. And I always encourage everyone, always start with management when you have training for the staff.
Before you move, can I just ask you both to share your websites? You said that people can access your portals online.
EEOC.gov.
Great.
Ours is ed.gov/OCR.
Thank you.
So anybody can file a fair housing complaint with us. You don't have to be an American citizen to file a fair housing complaint. We encourage anyone who feels as if they've been discriminated based on one of our 7 protected classes to file a complaint. We're pretty much like the other 2 government agencies. You can file by calling us on the phone. Our local number is 713-718-3199. You can go to HUD.gov and click on file a complaint. We love it when you do that. We love it when you file complaints online. But you're also more than welcome to come into our office and sit with an investigator to file a complaint. So we have multiple mediums on how you can file a complaint. Our services are completely free. When you file a complaint and the complaint is accepted by our regional office, it's assigned to an investigator. And we try to conciliate cases right off the bat, which is a form of mediation. Try to bring the 2 parties together and, hey, what's going on? Let's see if we can fix it. About 65% of the time that works. That other percentage, we will go out and we'll investigate the case. If we find that there's cause to believe that discrimination has occurred, the case is referred to the Department of Justice. The complainant can opt to have the case heard before an administrative law judge or the municipal court. What else? I think that's it.
Thank you so much. Before I ask the final couple of questions, if I can ask you a clarifying question. So each of you has mentioned sex as a protected class. By that, do you mean gender, like male, female, or do you mean sexual orientation?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So thank you for bringing it up because we do take cases based on sex or gender, but gender identity and sexuality is not protected under the Fair Housing Act. Now, don't let that discourage you because we all have other ways of getting it. If a person, we don't get you. If a person does discriminate based on sexual orientation, it's a fine line, but we'll have to make a determination, we'll ask the person, why do you feel you've been discriminated against? Well, I'm a woman and I dress like a man. Oh, really? Is that why? Well, we can take that case under sex for non-traditional gender conformity norms. So don't get it twisted. It's not protected, but we'll still get you. And under, if you're one of our federal partners and you receive federal funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and actually, if you get any federal funding that we find out about, you're required under the Equal Access Act to abide by those federal regulations, which do not allow discrimination based on sexual identity.
And yes, we still take charges under sex for genetic identity and sexual orientation, but also pregnancy. It's, for some reason, it's amazing that how many pregnancy cases that we see come into the agency, and that still falls under sex until someone knows we're making you pregnant. And so until that happens, it still falls under sex for us. One thing I didn't mention for our investigations, we are neutral when we take all our investigations when they start out, and then once we get a position from the respondent or the company, then we have enough information to kind of change sides. But if we do go to litigation, our litigation is also free if we take the litigation, if we represent you.
Also, single parents, do they file complaints too? Or that's-
Yes.
Okay.
Similar to my colleagues, the federal civil rights regulations that we enforce do not specifically cover sexual orientation or gendered identity or transgender status. However, we do have jurisdiction to investigate complaints of discrimination that may have been, the individual who may have been discriminated against may believe it's because of his or her sexual orientation. Same-sex harassment is certainly covered, so that's one avenue. Another is, as my colleague mentioned, where a person believes they're being discriminated against because of their failure to conform to gender stereotypes, that would also be covered under the regulations we enforce. So we handle those harassment complaints quite regularly. And just, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but the way in which we investigate complaints is very similar to my colleagues. When we investigate complaints of discrimination, we initially try to see if there's an opportunity for the complainant and the recipient to resolve it quickly. We call it facilitated resolution between the parties. If we proceed to investigation, though, we determine whether or not we can do so either from our office, where we're contacting and conducting interviews by phone, or we can do site visits to the recipient facility, conduct interviews, inspect facilities, things of that nature. So just wanted to demystify that if there was any question about that.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering now if you could share with all of us, please, some best practices in how an individual or a community could actually access your services. Are there certain things that we should do or prepare before we even come to contact you, and some best practices that you could offer?
I guess one thing to keep in mind is that when we investigate complaints of discrimination, there are timeframes in which you need to file your complaints. So generally, we will only investigate complaints of discrimination that have occurred within 180 days from when you file your complaint. So it's important to keep that time frame in mind. Another is that we do encourage folks to utilize, most of the recipients, because of our regulations, are required to have internal grievance procedures. So we do encourage people to utilize those to the extent they may be able to resolve the complaint with the institution itself. Generally, we will not proceed with an investigation if you are currently involved in an internal grievance, but then you can file with our office within 60 days of the resolution of that grievance if you believe if you didn't receive a satisfactory result, and we can review how that was handled to ensure that it was consistent with the civil rights laws. And just one other thing is that when you file a complaint, it is important to provide us with a kind of the who, what, where, when, how. We need to have sufficient information to understand the basis of your discrimination claim, but we can also assist you in getting that information. And so we contact anyone who files a complaint to get any clarifying information that we need.
It's the same with the EEOC. If you're thinking about filing with the EEOC, get your facts together first. Make sure you got everybody who, what, when, where, and why, what time it happened. And jurisdictional timelines, we too have 180 days or 300 days for EEOC in my region is 300 days. So anything after 300 days, I'm going to dismiss it. So you got 300 days after the date of harm before we'll look at it. Again, I also offer everybody, if you do come into our office, I think we have a 95% success rate or mediation. This is pretty, our mediation rate is pretty high in EEOC, so I encourage, again, everyone to take our mediation services. Maintain records, copies of any kind of paperwork, documentation. If you have all that information, please keep a copy and make sure you have it out. Timeline is very important about when did things happen, who saw, who know, any witnesses, name, identifying information on your witnesses because we're going to talk to them. If there's an internal process in your company or your agency, I encourage folks to use that process. If it's HR, we're going to talk to the HR folks. We're going to look into those kind of things. Also, be patient. I'm not going to solve your investigation in one day. That's TV. It doesn't happen that way. So the reality is, I think all my law enforcement brethren out there think you solve a crime in 1 hour, but that's a TV show. It may take us 6 months to a year to get the time, and also if we're going to take it in. Sometimes we release cases at intake. Sometimes we'll want more information. Our walk-in is open. We have walk-ins open from, I think, Monday to Tuesday. We don't take charges on Wednesdays. So check our website and make sure that we're available for you. I also encourage you to use our online portal. EEOC is finally moving into the 21st century, I think, on technology. So we are taking information via the portal. We can use any platform. So if you have your information when something happens, go online. If we can't get anybody, be patient with our system because people are using it. People come in, then they drop out. In our online portal, it'll take all your information and hold it for 90 days. After 90 days, if you don't make an appointment with us, it'll actually fall out. So, and I'll never see it after that point. So if you do get an appointment, keep your appointment. Don't let us know if you're going to back out because, again, I'm not hurting for clients and customers. So people want that, they want that appointment very readily. Also, you can file a third-party charge. You can file on behalf of someone, also in my agency as well. And again, it's the same process. It doesn't change. You can file, an attorney can file on your behalf as well. And so we have now a new portal that works with the attorneys as well out there. So I think, is that online yet, Travis? You know, the attorney portal? That's online. We have a master list of every employee now that's being updated in our database. And again, once you're in the database, I can always look you up, you know, so as a company or a respondent or a CP. We also have a very aggressive systemic program. If I think something is happening, not just on an individual basis, I like those charges, but if it's a systemic type of discrimination or harassment, we will take those charges. I'm very interested in those kind of things happen to a group, a class, or individuals out there. So now I think I'm not missing anything. Okay.
Okay, so best practices. I think best practices for dealing with fair housing discrimination is education and outreach. Currently, we have one Fair Housing Initiative partnership with Greater Houston Fair Housing Center, and they basically get a federal grant from us to go out into the different communities to let them know what their fair housing rights are. If you think there's a community that's dealing with a particular fair housing issue, we encourage you to call us. We can either direct you to our FIT partner, or we can come out ourselves and give education and outreach. A lot of times people just have questions. Well, my landlord is evicting me because I'm Hispanic. And I'm like, oh, that's horrible. That's really bad. Why do you think that he's evicting you because you're Hispanic? Because he lets all the other black people stay without paying their rent. And I'm like, really? You think they're letting black people stay rent-free, huh? And so generally we'll have a conversation and we'll be able to get community members to understand that, you know what? A person having a bad attitude about something isn't necessarily discrimination. As long as you have a bad attitude with everybody equally, we're okay. And the community doesn't necessarily know that. So, you know, it's one of those things we love to do, go out to the community and give training. But we also deal with a lot of housing people. Those are the important people for us to understand. If you discriminate against a person based on one of the 7 protected classes, we're gonna hit you in your pockets. Our remedies are not, we're not gonna put them in jail, but we're gonna hit your checkbook. And I think for a lot of our businesses, they're more concerned about you hitting their bottom line than going to jail most days. So they pay attention to what we say. For us, we have 100 days to investigate a case. That generally doesn't happen, I'm gonna be honest with you. We are very much like our counterparts, very busy. We are gainfully employed, and we have cases that will last us to the end of the millennium. But if we are not able to complete a case in 100 days, we send out a notification that we're still working on it, so we don't leave a person just hanging. A person has to file a fair housing complaint within a year of the alleged allegation for us. So you get a full year. I think you get 2 years to file civilly on your own, but in order for HUD to deal with it, you have to file within a year of the allegation. I think that's it.
Okay. Did you have
Hey,
something
one
else
thing,
to add?
we also have we have MOUs, memorandums of agreements, understandings with other agencies. We have an agreement with DOJ. We do talk, we do share notes across agencies. Also, the text of the Fair Employment Practice agencies, like the state of Texas, I forgot what it's called, Texas Workforce Commission. And we do share files, we do talk, depending on if you file with the state of Texas, it's the same as filing with the EEOC and the federal government. We are a federal agency. I will pull cases from the state if I think there's jurisdictional things that I want to investigate myself. We have agreements with Department of Labor and Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. So we do share and talk to each other across the board.
Thank you so much for sharing those pieces. I want to open it up now to the audience in case you all have any questions for our guests. If not, I can ask more questions.
I would like to ask if someone brings a complaint to any of your departments, do y'all try to distinguish between a person's beliefs, religious beliefs, as opposed to merely discrimination on the basis of one of those criteria? How is that handled or determined?
Great question.
Who wants to start? It's so hard to answer. Yeah.
Well, it's not hard for me at all to answer. So everyone's entitled to their religious beliefs. Everyone is entitled to their own religious beliefs. It's guaranteed under our Constitution. But in the housing industry, you can't allow your religious beliefs to interfere with my housing opportunity. So everyone has to be treated equally. I'm gonna be honest, if there's a complaint, a couple of years ago, we had an influx of complaints with people in the Muslim community, and people didn't want to rent to them, and they said it was because of their Christian belief. Whatever you want to tell me it's because of, that's fine, but it can't interfere with their housing opportunity. You can believe whatever you want as long as it doesn't affect someone else. So no, we don't try to distinguish whether or not you're allowed to have your own separate religious beliefs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my book, and it says discrimination based on discriminatory terms and conditions. And did this person treat this individual differently because of their religious belief? And if I have a check and it meets all the other checks, then it's going to be a cause case. Hopefully we'll be able to conciliate and give you a little bit of education and training on what you can and can't do. But if not, we're always happy to send things over to the Department of Justice to go to court. So that's from the HUD standpoint.
Does this also apply to private housing?
Yes.
Okay. So it's private and public housing is what it applies to.
Right. Now, we do have like a Mrs. Murphy exemption. Thank you for asking that. If a person owns 4 houses or less and they have to live in one of the homes, they can rent to whoever they want. as long as they don't advertise on a website or use a realtor. If they are renting out their place on their own, then they can say, well, I don't want anybody with big heads living here, and we don't allow that. And we're absolutely okay with that, and the big head population just have to get over it. But if they use any type of advertising or use a realtor, they are subject to the same Fair Housing Act. They're subject to the Fair Housing Act. So.
No different than EEOC, we don't explore what religion it is. Only exception where we would get into, if it's a religious institution or something and they're hired because of their religious piece, that would be the only distinction that I'm aware of that we will say. And then it depends on how long that person worked there, and there's so many things into that piece. But we don't necessarily care what religion you are. It's just the fact that it's a category for us, and we'll check the box. Do you have anything?
No, and we do have something in our enforcement guys that talks about a religion of one. So we do not try to distinguish in terms of what religion a person is or is not. It's just simply, as Dr. Shepard mentioned, against our statutes to discriminate based on religion.
You have to have a religion of one.
I have a question.
One moment, and there's someone before you,
Sorry,
sorry.
well, it's a good question, but much like my colleagues, we wouldn't, our interest wouldn't be in determining what was the individual's, distinguishing the person's individual religious beliefs. If what we would focus on is whether or not the person who's filing the claim was in fact subjected to discrimination on the basis of a protected category. But one thing I do want to mention, and of course I'm thinking about how this is being recorded, so this is a very sensitive area for our agency, but we do, in as much as we investigate complaints of harassment, often those do include expressions, First Amendment protected speech. So we do have to balance those interests because we do not enforce our civil rights statutes in ways that would restrict individuals' First Amendment free expression. So that's a very tough balancing act that we have to do, but I do want to acknowledge that we do respect that responsibility.
And can I say ditto? Same.
Thank you. We've got a question in the back, and then I'll come to you, sir.
Good morning. My question is, obviously, I was reading some articles. It shows, according to Wall Street Journal, it says there's a last 2017, 2018, there's a spike of more than 17% in overall hate crimes, and also there's a number shows around 37% when it comes to anti-Semitic related hate crimes. And so this is something we are going in the wrong direction. How we are addressing this spike and how we are making sure our minorities or those who are victims of these things in a higher level we are addressing, and understanding and acknowledging it is becoming a real problem than maybe 5 years ago. And so how do you address that to make our citizens' life better? Thank you.
Well, I'll start the education and outreach piece for us. All the groups, the association of the groups and stuff, the more people know and talk, communicate about the federal services and the agencies and our services that we offer, have conversations, dialogue. Ask us to come out to your organizations and talk to you about what your rights are, what we should be doing out there in a proactive manner. I think the key is definitely education.
We do our best. Obviously, we have seen some spikes, just depending on what's going on in the news, in terms of harassment of certain, particularly ethnic groups, often with a religious connotation, or at least the interconnectedness with that issue. And it's a day-to-day challenge, but we are committed to the vigorous enforcement of civil rights, and we continue to investigate those complaints and work with communities to try and address the concerns and the sensitivities in those communities. And we work collaboratively with other agencies as well, including the Department of Justice Community Relations Division, in terms of bringing them into a school district that may be experiencing a spike in bias sort of incidents and need some engagement on appreciating tolerance and appreciating the diversity of the community.
I'd like to say that unless we know what's going on, we can't investigate it. Meaning a complaint has to be brought forth to us in order for us to investigate a complaint of discrimination. There is an exception if the secretary, if the secretary of HUD decides that, hey, this is an issue, I've seen this in the news, we need to go and investigate it, it's an egregious issue, we will do a secretary-initiated complaint with the secretary taking on the responsibility as a complainant.
And I'll mention that in the community relations panel, we will also be covering the response to this question because there is a lot that's going on with civil society, government, and the private sector that the rest of us are working on also. Let me give it to the gentleman on the side here who has the final question, and then I'll turn over the floor. Sir, could you please share with us your question?
The audience member raised a good question about what I would interpret as First Amendment freedom of expression. And we've seen this with different retail stores in the application of Obamacare, and they're expressing their freedom of religion not to follow the law. Now, the question I have, is that same reasoning applicable to someone who's discriminating? Can I discriminate against somebody and say, well, it's in my religion not to like a certain class of people? Is there an exception or defense to discrimination?
Thank you, that's a very insightful and provocative question. I can't walk fast enough to get to you guys.
Next panel.
You can absolutely discriminate. You can. But we can absolutely take a fair housing complaint and send it over to the Department of Justice for them to deal with. So that's the answer to your question. You can do whatever you want, as long as you're aware that there's consequences to your actions.
The same thing in the employment community as well. You can do what you want, but if it's discriminatory, we're going to take the case and take the charge.
Yeah, I would just echo what you had said earlier, though. Yeah, people are free to believe what they choose to believe, but it stops at the rights of the individual who may be being denied a certain right or access to education or employment. That's where the limit is.
So what do you recommend? You said don't do it, right?
That's the recommendation. That is the recommendation, don't do it.
Please join me in thanking our panelists.